Hello YouTube! This video will be part 1 of making a website for my Raspberry Pi server, and the purpose of the website is mostly for fun and also to learn to get better at technology and networking. And I will be making some games in the future, is the plan, and upload them to the website. But for now, the only thing I made was the homepage, but I want to show you how I set it up, so let me just quickly demo it. Okay, this is the website, and it's called mux.net, and you can see it has a navigation bar. The lobby and games is just future stuff, so it's not working right now, but the homepage is working, and there's an About Me section with some social links. And then the main feature is this server dashboard, and I thought it would be fun to show the stats of the server itself, because it's my own server, so you can see if it's healthy. So the way this works is I made an API at another endpoint at api.mux.net, and this is a separate backend server running, and it has these endpoints api/ram, and then you get this JSON object. And it also has some other endpoints for getting the other stats. And then there's this spinny thing, so do's alive, and you can click refresh, and you get new data. And then I made some animations in Sprite, and you can click this button to get the new one. Ta-da! And that was it for now. Now we'll show you how I set it up. So here was the overall plan for making the website. Step 1. Start the Raspberry Pi server. Step 2, buy the Cloudflare domain and set up a tunnel connection because I don't have a static IP. And step 3, make the website itself with React.js. And number 4, deploy it using Docker. So first of all, I went and got my Raspberry Pi out of the closet. And now I have a Raspberry Pi 4, which is pretty old at this point. But at least it means that I have set it up previously on the SD card, so the operating system is already set up, so I don't need to flash the SD card again. But I did want to see if it was still even alive and what would happen if I just plugged it into the power cable and turned it on. The good thing is that it was at least lighting red, so it was sort of alive, but it wasn't blinking green as it's supposed to when it's healthy. So something was wrong. So I had to go troubleshoot it. And so I ejected the SD card and put it into this adapter, and then took it into my MacBook and then did some troubleshooting, and it turned out that the Wi-Fi setup was misconfigured. So it's supposed to be able to connect to your Wi-Fi when it starts up, but it can only do that if you specify these settings, like which Wi-Fi to connect to and with what password in a certain file. And another issue was that SSH was disabled, like the program used to connect to the server itself. So I had to create an empty SSH file just to enable that. But after those two things were set up again, and I moved the SD card back into the Raspberry Pi, and as you can see, as I plugged it in again, the color green was lighting up, which means it was healthy and working. I could finally connect, and it was working with SSH. So here you can see I have my old stuff when I used it previously, so that was good. Then I could continue with the other stuff, setting up the connection with the domain name on Cloudflare. And now step 2 was to buy the domain from Cloudflare and set up the tunnel connection to the server itself. So I went onto Cloudflare and I bought the domain. It's only like $11 a year, so it's not too bad. And to set up the tunnel connection, you need to install something called Cloudflare. and you need to run it with a certain key in order for it to be able to connect. And after the tunnel connection was set up and healthy, then I wanted to test the connection by creating some small dummy server where it just says hello world, and I set it to run on port 8080. And then I went into Cloudflare to create this tunnel and set it to point to this endpoint that I made on the server. And now, as you can see, when I go to mux.net, then it says hello world, so it's working. And step 3 was finally making the website itself. And the first thing I did was just make a quick sketch of what I wanted to make initially for the homepage. And besides a title and a navigation bar, I thought about adding an About Me section, a little screen for showing some random animations I wanted to make just for fun, and a sort of server dashboard where you could monitor the health of the Raspberry Pi server, so you could see if it's healthy or if it's dying. So in order to create the website itself, I wanted to use a JavaScript framework called React.js. And in order to set up this React project, you can use something called Vite, I'm not sure how to say it. And as you can see, it also starts up the node server itself for you, so you can see it's running. And they have this little counter. And after the project structure was set up, I made a GitHub repository and I published the folder to the repository. And you can also find the link to the GitHub in the description below if you want to see it. Then I began editing the website based on the template. And fortunately for me, the template actually sort of matches the sketch I made. So the changes I had to make were somewhat minimal. So I just added a navigation bar, fixed some of the layout a little bit and changed the colors. And then I added some images just to sort of get a feel for the layout as well. And then I used my mad paint skills to create a sort of background in space, where I just drew some planets. And after editing the text and the layout a bit more, then I had a layout that I was pretty happy with, and I thought I could continue with actually making the dashboard work. So the purpose of the dashboard is that it's supposed to display things like how much RAM the Raspberry Pi is using, how much like disk space, things like that. And in order to get that data, you can use a node library called System Information, and this library has some methods that can retrieve this information by reading from the file system. So the first thing I did was I got my AI buddy to help me write a endpoint for the memory information, and it looks like this. It's using the Express framework for routing the endpoints, and the endpoint it made in the beginning was just called API/RAM, and it's using systeminformation.mem for the memory, and then it's stored in this data object that is then used to formulate the response to the client, like total memory, used memory, and then used divided by total to get the percentage. And then you have to specify what port the server should be run on, which was just 5000 in the beginning, and then when you go to localhost 5000/API/RAM, you can see the JSON object looks like this. And I could use this to get started with the front-end stuff. And for the style of the dashboard, I thought it should look like a terminal with a orange and yellow color. And so to make this, I made a div with a orange background and a sort of gray border. And then I added a bunch of lines for each data point that I wanted to display. And then I got some help to set up the method for fetching the data from the API backend endpoint, just for the memory in the beginning, and putting that into the span line for memory. And after the fetch was set up, it was working, and you could see now in the little terminal that the memory total used and use % were being displayed correctly, so that was nice. And then after that I added some additional endpoints for CPU data, uptime for the server, and disk space available for the server. And then I modified the front-end dashboard to include these endpoints as well. And then the final result looks like this. Now the last part of the website that was missing was these random animations I wanted to make. And for this I'm using a program called Sprite that I normally use for creating drawings in pixel art and animations for games I work on. And the first animation I made was this cow getting abducted by an alien to outer space. Working on these animations were a lot of fun, and it was nice to do something else than coding and deploying stuff. And by the way, this is my first time in a long time making YouTube videos, so feedback is very welcome. If my voice is hard to understand or anything, just let me know in the comments. And the mic I'm using is like my old iPhone mic, so that's why it might be pretty bad, but I might get a real microphone in the future if I make more videos, but we'll see. But now this cinema cow animation being done, I moved on to the next animation, which was this dancing banana, which is inspired by an old meme, the peanut butter jelly time meme, which dance was used as the old torrent dance for World of Warcraft, and I just always found that funny. So I wanted to use it for my website. And for the final animation, I made a knight fighting a dragon. Or is the dragon fighting the knight? I don't know. What I do know is that the knight, he will die painfully. Because you don't steal the dragon's gold, okay? It's his gold. This was the hardest animation to make, I think, because the dragon he has 4 legs, okay, it's a lot of legs. And he has a tail and wings. It's a lot, so the tail ended up looking weird, but I think overall it looked pretty okay. At least the fire effect looks pretty cool, I think. Pretty lit. And it looks like this. The knight, he dies as he is yeeted off the map into the void. And now with the animations being done, I just imported them into the React project as images or GIFs and just displayed them to see how they looked in the website. And then I made another sort of terminal with the same sort of style as the dashboard, just with a different color and a button that you can use to get the next animation. And voila! Ta-da! It's working. And now I'm successfully done with the homepage. And for my next video I will be doing maybe a guest book or something else. We will see. Stay tuned.